Thanks for coming. Basically, what we're talking about is we've taken agentic AI beyond just coding. We use it for architecture work. We use it for planning large projects. We use it for market analysis, for moving apps to different tool sets or different products. And we use it on legacy code. We don't, there seems to be this prevailing thought out there that AI, agentic AI, just doesn't work with legacy code. That's not my experience, all right? I take that back. It is my experience on some tooling combinations that I've tried it on that I've had less than stellar success with. But my current tech stack, I've had very good success with legacy code. So I'm going for a little bit of interaction today. Show of hands, who has used or at least experimented with Claude-Flow before? Okay, one, great. Applause. Who has used Claude Code? Good, you've got a leg up because what actually happens is Claude-Flow runs an army of Claude Code agents under the covers, all right? It manages that for you, but if you didn't raise your hand, don't worry. There is, I will boost you and get you up to speed. Enough about me, I'm a professional geek. If you look me up on LinkedIn or something, it kind of makes you to believe that I'm more of a manager type and I only do white shirt stuff grudgingly. I'd rather code, but you know, enough about me. What we're going to do today is I need to, before we get into applying Claude-Flow and Claude Code to a legacy code base, I need to level set. Modernization means different things to different people, all right? So I need to clarify my terms a little bit there. And for the people that didn't raise their hands, I need to give you a little bit more about what Claude Code is and what Claude Code does for me and why I use it in this mix. And then we're going to, and we're not going to, that's just level setting. We're going to spend the bulk of our time basically showing you what it can do with a legacy code base, a substantial one, all right? The Orienteer CRM basically is a CRM that, as far as I can tell, was largely abandoned in about 2020. It's a very large Java application. And I chose Java not because I have any religious affiliation for it, but I chose Java because a lot of Java is out there, and that's a large percentage of our legacy code base. All right, and so that's kind of why I chose it. I see a lot of people taking photos. That QR code gets you to a web page that has a copy of this deck. It has active links. And you might notice that I'm pretty good about putting active links in my decks. So if you take a picture, what you really want to do is take a picture of that. And it gives you, it gets you to all this. And if there is some type of trouble, I need to start my timer. If there's some type of trouble and you can't get to the deck, contact me on LinkedIn or whatnot. I'll make sure that you get it. But basically, modernization to me is a lot of people when they think about that term, they think, well, I'm just updating my tech stack. That might be true, but that's more of a symptom or a byproduct of modernization rather than the goal. Usually what customers mean when they approach us about, well, we want to modernize this app, what they really mean is we want it to move to the cloud or cube, And we want it to be able to take advantage of dynamic scaling and higher availability features that those platforms have. All right? And lots of legacy code bases cannot do that. Rather than concentrating on the tech stack for an app modernization effort, and I need to learn how to say that, it's more application portability than anything else. The other thing that happens with legacy code bases is they become hard to change. And everybody cringes when new releases come out because you don't know what's going to break. And in other words, what really comes along with this application modernization effort is a code management change as well. Another show of hands. Who is familiar with the concept of a 12-factor app or the 12-factor application principles? Okay, a few people. Back in 2012, Heroku, which got bought out by Salesforce, a bunch of people there put together a specific list of 12 characteristics that applications should have if they are going to be hosted in the cloud and be able to take good advantage of resiliency features or dynamic scaling features, and in essence, be portable. Make your hosting environment a choice rather than a requirement that's baked in. And that's well documented, and there's a link there for it. And we talked a little bit about this anyway. Companies don't modernize just for fun. They modernize because they're in a pickle, all right? Apps are too hard to change, and they want to get to this cloud thing, and they've recognized that lifting and shifting doesn't really work as well as people think they would work. All right, why do I use Claude-Flow? What is Claude-Flow? What it does is it runs a team of Claude Code agents under the covers. Out of the box, it just works. You basically install it. There's a minor configuration thing with Claude Code that you got to do, but you are just off and running in minutes, not hours or days. And I use it to get stuff done, right? I don't want to spend time on plumbing. And it's not that I'm just turning my nose up at it. It's just my focus is different, okay? And by default, right out of the box, basically Claude-Flow will manage the team so I don't have to. For you Cursor users out there, Cursor just within the past few weeks released a feature where you can, within the IDE, run multiple agents to do different things on your code base at the same time. That's a great improvement, and I'm not dinging it, but what that scene forces me to do is it forces me to micromanage the team. That's a function that Claude-Flow does for me, all right? Of the agents that get assigned to your task, what happens is there is a coordinator agent. He looks at what I ask the team to do, and he decides, well, I need a tester agent, I need a coder agent, I need a project manager agent, I need an analyst agent, I need a researcher agent, or whatever it is, depending upon what I asked. I didn't have to micromanage those decisions. With Claude-Flow, I can, but to date, I have not had a reason to do it. And it's the ease of use thing that draws me. I find myself, I'm not spending time in the plumbing. I'm spending time on what I really want to be doing, on the outcomes that I want. Okay, now, let's turn the corner. Application modernization I've defined. Claude-Flow, I've told you what it is. Let's do some real work with it, all right? And this is analytical work or something. Before this tooling came along, when we got app monitorization projects, For clients, the very first thing that we would do is figure out, okay, what kind of team do I need to put together to go audit that code base to know what kind of nasties we got to fix in order to modernize it. In other words, the way to state that is, where does it violate the 12-factor principles? Okay, so what I did is I basically crafted a series of English statements, and there's a link for the detailed instructions. I've cleaned them up a little bit so I could present them on a slide, but I basically just asked my team, hey, give me a 12-factor analysis. By the way, the 12-factor principles are nicely defined on the web, so you can go read them and look them up. And by the way, I don't want you to change the application. I don't want you to mess with that in any way. I just want to know where the application violates 12-factor principles so I know what I got to go fix to have this application do dynamic scaling and high availability and all the other things that we would like when we get it to the cloud. And I basically gave that to my team, and about 10 minutes later, literally 10, 11 minutes later, I get a series of markdown documents, and it's way too much for me to present on a slide like this. What I've given you is just the summary in the at the very top of the executive summary, but it basically went through all 12 factors. It looked in detail at all of them, and it basically told me where the code base violates the 12-factor principles. And further on down, it'll give me exact details on exactly where the application broke down, where it violated the principles, and what it thinks it would have to change. And when I get something like this, I just don't take it. I mean, even when I had human teams doing this, right? And I would get their analysis, I wouldn't trust it. I'd trust but verify. All right, so I basically, and we can't do that today, there's no time, but I basically went through the 20 or 30 pages that got generated out of this, and I went through line by line, and it largely hung together. Now, a couple of the, you notice how it kind of graded things into categories, statuses. In a couple of instances, it flagged things that are critical that I might have basically upgraded to poor or something along those lines. But beyond those nits, and I would have that criticism of what a human team gave me anyway, right? It largely hung together, and basically what it basically told me is that the app doesn't support dynamic scaling. It uses stateful sessions. There are ways to fix that. It has hard-coded credentials. It doesn't have health checks. Basically, there's no way to, it's monolithic. There's no way to individually scale pieces. And so what I did next, and that, you know, it took me about an hour to go through it, but it took my team only 10 minutes to come deliver it. What I did next is I said, okay, let's assume I'm going to fix each and every problem that you found. All right, so use the analysis that you neatly documented in this folder and give me an execution plan. Don't change anything yet, but I want to know, what do you suggest in terms of order that I go tackle these changes, and how do I do it safely? And oh, by the way, add an automated acceptance test suite, because when I actually go change this for real, I don't want to break anything, or at least I want a chance of catching things I break before I deploy it. Because, you know, a lot of times legacy code bases don't really have good automated test suites. All right, so I tack that on to any modernization effort that I do. And so I nicely verbalized these instructions. I cleaned them up for the slide, but you can look at exactly what I gave it. And it basically came out with estimated human labor. It broke out what was human, what was agent-based, and what my runtime costs would be, and what it thought, based on prevailing market rates, it would cost me. Now, that's Claude code in its training talking. That's nothing I would just point blank take to management to go budget. But on the other hand, basically, and in fact, the first time I had it plan the implementation, I screwed up. I forgot to tell it that, oh, by the way, don't assume that human coders are doing all of this. Assume that I am using agentic engineers, using agentic practices, and using Claude-Flow and Claude code. All right? And so I had to do a couple revisions of that. And incidentally, you've all been there, right? As an architect, I go take a plan or take the effects of a proposed change up to management. First of all, they don't like the price. Secondly, their minds start shifting about, okay, what if we didn't do this part of what it's recommending, or we didn't do that part of what it's recommending? In the old days when I'm running a human team to go do this, people scurry off and they go do that. In a few days, I'll have my answer, right? With my Claude-Flow team, basically a few minutes later, 10, 20 minutes later, I've got answers to them. Now, I have to go through those answers to make sure that it didn't hallucinate, or make sure I verbalized the changes I wanted it to game out for me. But basically, that opens up the world. I don't like going through and writing 80-page finding documents. That's not something I consider fun. I'm just going to guess that you don't consider that fun either. But this whole world basically makes more possible. Now, we talked a little bit about this, reframing the question. If I were going to give this to a human team, could I trust it more? And the reality is I'm going to still trust but verify. Basically, all forecasts, whether they're human-driven or whether my Claude team drives it, have forecasts with error rates. Nobody has a crystal ball, and my Claude-Flow team doesn't have a crystal ball either, all right? What I do like, there are a couple of advantages. Claude has no concept of corporate politics. If I have a human team, they will know what the higher-ups think, or the higher-ups will go down below me and say, skew the decision down to these facts instead of what you know to be true. Claude ignores all that. No corporate politics, no corporate bias. All right, and it's unbeatable speed, which means that those managers can ask more questions because I have the ability to game out more scenarios more quickly. And on their side, role play for an upper level management person, right? They are hesitant to ask those scenarios be gamed out because they know they're paying for it. They know in an all human situation, I've got to go back to the team, and people scramble for hours or days and go figure that out at a consulting rate that they don't really like to pay. But on the other hand, if they know that I'm going to take that back to my team, which is a Claude-Flow team, I can have that back well within a day, and it doesn't cost them nearly as much. So they can ask more questions. It doesn't matter. Okay. When you talk about app modernization, bringing that up a level, Variably, especially when they consider the pain of modernizing the app, somebody comes up with the idea of what if we just move these people to a different product? We configure a SaaS product that kind of close to fits what our business people are doing, and we move them to that instead. All right? So, okay, my team can handle that too. All right, so what I basically did is I verbalized those instructions. I told my team to go out into the world with this code base, go find available SaaS products that I could potentially move users to, prioritize conserving features. In other words, we got to meet the business need, right? Users got to do what they have to do anyway. I can't get out of that. And basically prioritize safety and moving, that kind of thing. And I'm running short of time, so I'm going to speed up just okay. To finish this thought out. Basically, it went away it took it a little bit longer this time. It went away for about 15, 20 minutes. And it came back with, okay, these are the top 3 SaaS alternatives I see given the features of Orienteer. Now, my team was operating with their hands tied behind their back, because had this been a real installation, I could have basically I could have given it information about, okay, my users use these features, but they don't use these features, right? And that might have influenced the analysis. I didn't have that. So basically, it came up with a recommendation and went through in detail on all of them. And it's recommending Salesforce based on what I gave it. Key takeaways, all right? This world goes beyond coding. For architects, you could do architectural planning, and oftentimes my team comes up with ideas that I might not have thought of and are worth listening to, okay? For team leads, you're dealing with management, and it's nice to know how big this effort is. You know, is it small, is it medium, is it large? What size effort are you looking at? And you've got to be able to socialize that up to your executive management chain. For agile teams, it basically helps you break out stories. In this world, stories tend to be a little bit larger than they would in a whole entirely human team world, right? I look at it as a continuum. In a human team world, we size stories so that they take less than 2 days, or something along those lines, versus the one-shot deals that you see publicized. To me, what ends up happening is this world moves us along the continuum where my team can handle slightly larger stories than they used to be able to handle, but we're still not getting to the one-shot deal. All right? And I am probably, because I started my talk late, or timer late, thanks for coming. I'm around. Feel free to contact me with questions or anything if you have them. I would very happily help you out and get you any information that you need. Thanks for coming.
So thank you, Derek. We have time for one question. The other presenters are setting up, so I'll come to you. So Baruch and others, sorry, just go ahead. You're happy to set up while... Okay.
Thank you. I thought that was great. What about if you're looking at adopting a framework like, say, SpecKit, and you want to use SpecKit and Claude Code? Would Claude-Flow compete with that, have contention with that, or could it be integrated into a spec framework?
I missed part of your question. I'm sorry.
So imagine you are adopting a framework like SpecKit, a spec-based framework for development, because you moved on from Vibe. Would they coexist or would they overlap?
I think you could make it coexist. I think what I'd have to do, and I haven't tried that specifically, so I'm leaving the realm of what my experience is and telling you what I would try. I would tell my team about the Claude, or about the spec framework and about any spec framework artifacts that might already exist. I would tell it how it should interpret those and how it should use those. And I would see what it comes up with. And I would let it work on its own feature branch, so if I didn't like what it came up with, I would try again. And on some pivot like that, I would expect that Derek would have to try a couple of times before I got something that worked. That would be that's what I would try.
Fair enough. Thank you.